In the shadowy, humid nights of early 20th century Louisiana, a wave of terror swept through the vibrant city of New Orleans. Known for its music, culture, and lively spirit, the city became the unwilling stage for one of America's most bizarre and chilling criminal mysteries. This was the reign of the Axeman. Between 1918 and 1919, an unidentified attacker stalked the city's neighborhoods, breaking into homes under cover of darkness. He committed brutal murders with an axe, often one belonging to the victims themselves. The story of the Axeman begins when New Orleans was both flourishing and fragile. The city pulsed with life. Jazz music spilled out of clubs. Immigrants brought new traditions. And industries thrived along the Mississippi River. But beneath this cultural richness lay social tensions, crowded living conditions, and limited policing capabilities. It was an environment where fear could spread quickly, and once it did, it clung to the city like the heavy southern air. The Axeman's attacks were shocking not only for their violence, but for their peculiar patterns. He typically entered homes and used whatever tools were available, most often an axe or a straight razor found on the premises. Entry was usually gained by chiseling through wooden doors or panels, suggesting a methodical, almost ritualistic approach. The attacks were swift, savage, and often left entire households shattered. The victims came from various walks of life, though many were Italian-American grocers and their families. This led to early speculation that the killings might be tied to organized crime or ethnic targeting. However, as more cases emerged, no clear motive could be established. Some victims survived and gave fragmented accounts of a shadowy figure, sometimes described as tall and dark, other times as indistinct and ghost-like. These conflicting descriptions only deepen the mystery. One of the earliest widely known attacks occurred in May 1918, when a grocer and his wife were assaulted in their home, though both survived. The brutality of the incident shocked the community. Not long after, other families were not so fortunate. Victims were found bludgeoned in their beds, their homes eerily quiet except for the lingering signs of violence. The randomness of the attacks made them especially terrifying. There seemed to be no pattern, no warning, and no way to predict who might be next. As fear spread, so did rumors. Some believed the Axeman was a human killer with a vendetta. Others whispered of something more supernatural, a demon or spirit that moved unseen through locked doors and vanished without a trace. The idea of an ordinary man committing such acts was almost too much for many to accept, and so the legend began to take on a life of its own. Law enforcement struggled to contain the panic. The lack of forensic technology at the time made investigations difficult. Fingerprinting was still in its early stages, and there were no databases, no DNA testing, and no reliable way to connect crimes. Detectives relied heavily on witness testimony, which was often inconsistent or influenced by fear. Despite their efforts, the Axeman remained elusive. Each new attack seemed to mock the authorities, reinforcing the idea that the killer could strike at will. Citizens began taking matters into their own hands. Some families slept in shifts, keeping watch through the night. Others fortified their homes, boarding up doors and windows. Weapons were kept close at hand, and the once lively nights of New Orleans grew tense and silent. Then, in March 1919, the case took a bizarre and unforgettable turn. A letter was sent to a local newspaper, claiming to be from the Axeman himself. Written in a strange, almost theatrical tone, the message was both chilling and surreal. The writer claimed to be a supernatural being, not a human, and spoke of his love for jazz music. He then issued a peculiar promise. On a specific night, he would kill again, but he would spare any household that was playing jazz music. The letter caused an immediate sensation. Some dismissed it as a hoax, but others were not willing to take the risk. As the appointed night approached, a strange transformation swept over New Orleans. Instead of silence and fear, the city erupted in music. On that night, jazz poured from homes, clubs, and street corners. Families who owned instruments played them with urgency and hope. Those who did not turned to phonographs, filling their homes with the lively sounds of brass, piano, and rhythm. Professional musicians took to the streets, performing late into the night. It was as if the entire city had united in a desperate, defiant symphony. Remarkably, when morning came, no murders were reported. This single night became one of the most legendary moments in the story of the Axeman. Whether by coincidence, compliance, or something more mysterious, the killer did not strike. For many, it seemed as though the city's music had driven away the darkness, if only temporarily. Despite this eerie pause, the Axeman's reign did not end immediately. A few more attacks occurred later in 1919, though they were less frequent. Eventually, the killings stopped altogether, as suddenly as they had begun. No suspect was ever definitively identified, and the case faded into legend. Over the years, numerous theories have been proposed. Some believe the Axeman was a single individual with a specific psychological compulsion, targeting victims at random to create fear. Others argue that the crimes may have been committed by minus one perpetrators, their actions later woven together into a single narrative by the media. There are also more unusual theories. The content and tone of the letter have led some to speculate that the Axeman sought attention, crafting a persona that would ensure his place in history. The reference to jazz suggests a killer who understood the cultural fabric of the city and used it to amplify his impact. The possibility of a copycat killer has also been considered. In a time of widespread panic, it would not have been difficult for others to imitate the Axeman's methods, either to exploit the fear or to mask their own crimes. This could explain some of the inconsistencies in the attacks. What remains undeniable is the psychological effect the Axeman had on New Orleans. The fear was real, the deaths were real, and the sense of vulnerability lingered long after the attacks ceased. The case highlighted the limitations of early 20th century policing and the powerful role of media in shaping public perception. The Axeman has since become a figure of enduring fascination. His story has inspired books, films, and countless retellings, each attempting to unravel a mystery or reimagine the events. Yet despite these efforts, the true identity of the killer remains unknown. In many ways, the Axeman represents more than just a criminal. He embodies the fears of a city at a particular moment in time, a convergence of uncertainty, cultural change, and the unknown. His ability to vanish without explanation only adds to the myth, blurring the line between history and legend. The night of jazz stands out as a symbol of resilience. Faced with an invisible threat, the people of New Orleans turned to what they knew best, music. In doing so, they transformed fear into unity, creating a moment that would echo through history. Even today, the story of the Axeman continues to captivate. It serves as a reminder that some mysteries resist resolution, that not all questions have answers, and perhaps that is why the legend endures, because in the silence left behind by the killer, there is still room for imagination, speculation, and the haunting possibility that the truth may never be fully known.